February 5, 2021, St. Rosalie's Campus, Hampton Bays, New York. Our Lady of America, a message to the people of the United States of America and to the whole world. I come to you today as your Lady of America, but I come bearing a message of importance for the whole world. As I have told you in the past, you are now in the final years of the end times. It has been difficult in the past for many of my followers to realize that we have come to this point. For decades now, many of my followers have been anxious that the final days were not happening soon enough for them, but now that you are here, soon enough takes on an entirely new meaning. Perhaps it is time for my followers who have been listening to my messages from heaven for decades now, to recognize that the prophecies of the end times have been cast in stone since the creation of mankind by the Father in heaven, who is all-knowing and all-powerful. From the time of the Garden of Eden until the birth of my Son, your Redeemer, Jesus Christ, it has been known that the Father in heaven would sacrifice His only begotten Son to save mankind from its own destruction. So 2,000 years ago, I gave birth to the Father's Son, to the Redeemer of the whole world, and at that time my Son, Jesus Christ, began His 33-year mission here on earth to redeem God's children who had lost sight of their mission here on earth. Even then, the Father in heaven foresaw the struggle that would commence for another 2,000 years, whereby the forces of evil clashed with the goodness of the Father in heaven, resulting in the necessity for a second divine intervention in the affairs of mankind. So here we are now, 2,020 years later from the original birth of my Son, Jesus Christ. Although the second coming of my Son is a spiritual return as opposed to the incarnation 2,000 years ago, my Son, the Redeemer, has been just as powerfully walking the face of the earth in the past 20 years, just as He did in a physical state 2,020 years ago in preparation for His original mission to save humanity. 2,020 years ago, my Son prepared for 30 years to begin His public ministry in the year 30 AD. A ministry that lasted 3 years, in which my Son made all things new again and transfixed the entire world to recognize that the Redeemer of all humanity in the only begotten Son of the Father, your only Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Therefore, in the year 2020 AD, we have only the final decade of 2020 to 2030, as my Son took 30 years then. He takes 30 years now to prepare humanity for His second coming and His public ministry, which will be 3 years long, just as the first public ministry of 2,000 years ago. Therefore, the second coming in spirit began in the year 2000 AD and proceeds for 30 years from 2000 to 2030, culminating in the public ministry of the second coming in spirit from 2031 through 2033. As it was in the ancient past, it shall be in the not-too-distant future. Our Lady of America.